the night my world ended, and my life began. The twinkle of fairy lights I'd strung across our tiny Portland apartment bounced off the windows, creating a galaxy in our living room. My 24th birthday party was perfect. The air smelled like cinnamon from the cake on the counter and buzzed with the laughter of my favorite people. But underneath my ribs, a different kind of buzz, a secret, joyous hum, made my heart feel like it was floating. In my purse was a tiny, grainy ultrasound photo. Tonight, after we cut the cake, I was going to tell everyone that Liam and I were having a baby. For 4 years, Liam had been my world. We met in a college design class and fell into that easy, all-consuming kind of love. We built a life together in that apartment, dreaming of traveling, of opening our own graphic design studio, of someday. And now, someday, was secretly tucked inside me. I'd been hiding the morning sickness for weeks, blaming a stomach bug. Liam had been distant, glued to his phone and working late at his sales job. I'd told myself he was just stressed, trying to land a big commission. The truth, I now know, is that I was ignoring the little red flags because I was so in love with the big picture we had painted. Around 9 p.m., just as I was about to grab the cake, Liam tapped his glass with a spoon. A hush fell over the room. My best friend Maya shot me a questioning look from across the room, her eyebrows raised in a "is this it" gesture. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was he going to propose? How did one announce a pregnancy and an engagement in the same night? He smiled, that dazzling smile that had always made me feel like the only person in the world. "To Chloe," he began, his voice smooth and confident, "4 amazing years. You've made me so happy." He walked over and handed me a small, heavy box wrapped in silver paper, the kind from the luxury jewelry store downtown. Everyone's phones were out, their faces glowing in the screen light. My hands trembled as I carefully peeled back the paper. This was it, a ring, a promise. But inside, nestled on the velvet, wasn't a ring. It was a single, folded piece of thick cardstock. My brow furrowed in confusion as I opened it. The note was written in his familiar, sharp handwriting. "You're holding me back. My life is supposed to be bigger than this. I deserve more." The words didn't make sense. It felt like a prank, a cruel, elaborate joke. I looked up at him, searching his face for the punchline, for the real gift. But the warm, loving eyes I knew were gone. They were cold, flat, and filled with a chilling sort of pity. "We're done," he said, his voice loud enough for the silence to shatter. "It's been real, but I've outgrown this." He gave a short, sharp laugh, and a few of our friends, confused, laughed nervously with him. Then he turned, walked out the front door, and closed it softly behind him. The silence that followed was so thick you could have choked on it. 20 pairs of eyes were on me. I could feel the blood drain from my face, the room tilting slightly. The secret in my belly suddenly felt like a stone weighing me down. But then, something inside me clicked. A cold, hard resolve I didn't know I possessed. He thought he had destroyed me with one perfect, public execution. He had no idea. He didn't know about the baby. He didn't know that, 2 weeks ago, looking for our shared iPad to queue up a movie, I'd seen his iMessages still synced. The flirty texts, the heart emojis, the plans to meet up with Tessa while I was at my freelance gigs. He didn't know I'd seen the Venmo transactions for dinner and drinks winking face to Tessa, a girl from his work who I'd met who had smiled to my face at the company picnic. He didn't know his devastating exit was actually my escape, so I did the only thing I could. I smiled. I picked up the knife, my hand surprisingly steady, and cut the cake. More for us, I guess. I announced to the stunned room, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. The party died a quick, awkward death. Tessa's best friend, who was also there, claimed a sudden migraine and fled. Interesting. Maya and my other close friends, Ben and Sam, stayed. They cleaned up around me as I sat on the couch, a hollowed-out thing in a party dress. Once everyone else was gone, Maya wrapped a blanket around me, and the dam broke. I sobbed until my throat was raw, for the betrayal, for the public humiliation, for the tiny life inside me who deserved so much better than this. That night, I showed Maya the screenshots of the texts. We pieced it all together. The late nights, the sudden work trips. I told her I was pregnant. She just held my hand, her grip a lifeline. "We'll figure it out," she whispered, and for the first time, I believed it. The next morning, I changed the locks. My first act of defiance. Liam texted demanding his things. I told him he could get them on Saturday, and that my friend Ben, who was built like a linebacker, would be here to supervise. That week was a blur of practicalities that saved me from drowning in emotion. I opened a new bank account. I met with a lawyer who specialized in family law. I scheduled my first official OB/GYN appointment. I was building a fortress, brick by brick, to protect myself and my baby. When Liam showed up that Saturday, his arrogance had been replaced by a sullen anger. He saw Ben and didn't argue. As he was leaving, carrying a box of his designer sneakers, he finally looked at me. "You're really gonna throw away 4 years over one fight?" I almost laughed. "A fight? Liam, you detonated a bomb at my birthday party and walked away. This isn't a fight. This is you showing me exactly who you are, and I believe you." His jaw tightened. He couldn't stand not having the last word, not being the one in control. I just closed the door. A month later, I was at the Saturday farmer's market trying to find a ginger chew that might quell the relentless nausea when I saw her. Tessa. She was buying kale, looking stressed. Our eyes met, and she had the decency to look away, a flush creeping up her neck. I almost kept walking, but I was tired of running. "He told me you two were already broken up," she blurted out before I could say a word. "That you were just roommates until the lease was up." I looked at this girl, who I had wanted to hate with every fiber of my being, and I just felt tired. "He told me he was working late," I said simply. We stood there for a moment in a strange, silent truce, two women who had been played by the same charming man. "He's not what I thought he was," she finally mumbled, looking down at her kale. "He really is," I replied, and walked away, the scent of fresh strawberries filling the air. It wasn't a victory, but it felt like closure. As the weeks turned into months, my belly grew from a soft curve into a definite bump. I finally told my family and friends about the pregnancy. The support was a tidal wave of love that washed away so much of the lingering shame. I knew word would get back to Liam, and it did. The frantic texts started late one night. "A baby? Why didn't you tell me? I have rights, Chloe." Then, an hour later, a pounding on my door that rattled the frame. I looked through the peephole. It was Liam, drunk, his face pale and desperate in the porch light. He was shouting my name, begging me to open the door, yelling about "our baby." My hand flew to my stomach, a primal protective instinct. This angry, unstable man was not going to be a father. Not like this. I called Ben, who lived 2 blocks away, and then I spoke through the door, my voice colder than I knew I was capable of. "You're drunk, Liam. Go home. We will talk when you're sober, and it will be through my lawyer." "Tessa left me," he howled, his voice cracking. "She found out I was taking another girl out. My boss put me on notice. My whole life is falling apart." "That sounds familiar," I said, the words sharp and pointed. I heard him slump against the door, his angry shouts turning into pathetic sobs. Ben arrived a few minutes later and calmly convinced Liam to get in a cab. I never opened the door. The next day, a sober, haggard Liam met me at a neutral coffee shop. He tried to apologize, but his apologies were all about him, how hard things had been for him. I cut him off and handed him a folder. It contained a proposed child support agreement and a schedule for supervised visitation after the baby was born, all drafted by my lawyer. "This is the conversation we're having," I told him, my voice shaking only slightly. "This is about what's best for our child, not about us." For the first time, he looked truly defeated. The master of appearances had lost control of the narrative. The last few months of my pregnancy were a quiet period of nesting and preparation. I transformed my spare room into a nursery, painting a mural of soft gray mountains on the wall. I took on more freelance work, saving every penny. I was going to be okay on my own. My daughter Ava was born on a rainy Tuesday morning. The labor was long and hard, but Maya was there, holding my hand, breathing with me. Liam showed up, looking lost and terrified. When the nurse finally placed Ava on my chest, a tiny, perfect creature with a fuzz of dark hair, the whole world just melted away. There was only her. The heartbreak, the betrayal, it had all been a dark, winding path that led me right to this moment, to her. I wouldn't have changed a thing. Liam held her later, his hands clumsy, tears streaming down his face. They were the first real, honest tears I had ever seen him cry. Life now is a beautiful, chaotic whirlwind of 3 a.m. feedings and mountains of laundry. Liam is trying. He pays his support on time. He shows up for his scheduled visits, bringing diapers and awkwardly trying to soothe Ava when she cries. I see flickers of the man I thought he was, but I also see the deep cracks in his foundation. We are co-parents, nothing more. A fragile peace treaty negotiated for our daughter's sake. There's a barista at my local coffee shop named Noah. He has kind eyes and always draws a little smiley face in the foam of my decaf latte. He asked me out last week. I told him I needed some time, and he just smiled and said, "I'll be here." Last night was my 25th birthday. 1 year since the night that broke me. Maya, Ben, and Sam came over for pizza. We sat on the floor of my living room, the same living room, now filled with a playmat and baby toys. Liam had dropped off a gift earlier, a small silver locket. Inside he'd written, "For Ava to know she came from love, even if I messed it up." As I held my sleeping daughter, surrounded by friends who had become my family, I felt a profound sense of peace. That note in the box a year ago was meant to be an ending. Liam thought he was writing the last chapter of my story. He had no idea he was just giving me the pen. Update: the first year is the hardest and the most beautiful. It's funny how time warps when you have a baby. The nights are an eternity, a blurry cycle of feeding and rocking and shushing in the blue-gray light of dawn. But the months, they vanish like smoke. 1 minute you're holding a tiny, fragile newborn, and the next you're pulling half-chewed board books out of the mouth of a giggling, crawling 6-month-old who has definite opinions about pureed peas. The 6-month mark hit like a quiet anniversary. An anniversary of survival. Ava and I had found our rhythm. My small apartment, once a stage for heartbreak, was now a chaotic, joyful nest of stacking rings, baby swings, and the constant, sweet smell of milk and lavender baby wash. My freelance design work was steady, and I'd carved out a routine of working during Ava's naps, fueled by coffee that was almost always cold by the time I finished it. Co-parenting with Liam remained a work in progress. He was consistent with his visits and his child support, which was more than I'd initially hoped for. But he treated his time with Ava less like parenting and more like a photo op. He'd arrive with expensive, impractical outfits, snap a dozen perfect pictures for his Instagram story, #GirlDad, and then seem at a loss for what to do when she'd spit up on the cashmere sweater he'd bought her. He was performing the role of a father, and while a part of me was grateful for the effort, another part ached for Ava to have the real thing. The first real test was Christmas. He wanted to split the day exactly in half, morning with me, afternoon with him at his parents' house. He spoke of lavish gifts and a huge family gathering. All I wanted was a quiet, peaceful first Christmas for Ava. We argued over the phone, his voice taking on that familiar, frustrated edge. "I just want her to have the best, Chloe. Is that so wrong?" he'd said. "She's a baby, Liam. She doesn't need the best. She needs calm. She needs her routine," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I was no longer the girl who crumbled under his disapproval. I was Ava's mom. My spine was made of steel now. We eventually compromised, but the conversation left a bitter taste in my mouth. He still saw love as something you could buy and display. Meanwhile, there was Noah, the kind-eyed barista. After weeks of gentle flirting over the coffee counter, I finally said yes to a date. Maya came over to watch us sleeping Ava, and I spent an hour trying on clothes, feeling like a teenager again. The woman in the mirror looked different. softer around the edges, with tired eyes, but with a strength I'd never seen before. With Noah, it was easy. So easy it was almost unsettling. We walked along the river, talking about everything and nothing. He was studying to be an elementary school teacher and spoke about his future students with a passion that made my heart ache in a good way. For 3 hours, I wasn't a mom, I wasn't a survivor of a messy breakup, I was just Chloe. I talked about art and stupid movies, and felt a part of myself I thought was dormant wake up and stretch. He didn't kiss me that night. He just walked me to my door and said, "I had a really nice time, Chloe." It was simple, honest, and held no expectations. He started to become a quiet, steady presence in my life. He'd drop by with coffee on his way home from class. He helped me carry in groceries when he saw me struggling. He never pushed, never crowded me. He met Ava for the first time when she was about 8 months old. I was a wreck with nerves, but he just sat on the floor with her, making a tower of blocks and letting her grab his finger with her impossibly tiny hand. He wasn't performing. He was just there. The collision was inevitable. It happened on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Liam was dropping Ava off after his visit. I was sitting on a blanket in my small patch of a front yard with Noah, watching Ava attempt to crawl on the grass. From Liam's perspective, pulling up to the curb, it must have been a perfect picture of domestic bliss, one he wasn't in. He got out of the car, his face a thundercloud. He walked over, his smile a tight, brittle thing, and handed a sleeping Ava to me, his eyes fixed on Noah. "Playing Happy Families?" he said, his voice laced with something acidic. I felt a surge of hot anger, but I looked at my daughter's peaceful face and took a deep breath. "Noah is my friend, Liam. That's all you need to know." "My daughter's life is all I need to know," he shot back. "I don't want strangers around her." Noah, bless him, stood up slowly. "It was nice to meet you, man," he said, his voice calm and even, offering a hand. Liam just stared at it until Noah dropped his arm, the rejection hanging in the air. After Noah left, giving me a supportive glance over his shoulder, Liam turned on me. "You're replacing me. I knew it. After everything, you're just trying to erase me." The accusation was so absurd, so steeped in his own insecurity, that the anger just drained out of me, replaced by a profound sadness. "No one is replacing you, Liam," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You are Ava's father. That is your role, forever. But you are not my partner. You gave up that right. My life, who I spend my time with, is my own. You don't get a say." He just stared at me, his whole self-righteous argument deflating. He had no comeback, because I had given him the one thing he couldn't fight, the truth. He got back in his car and drove away without another word. That night, after I put Ava to bed, I sat in the quiet of my living room and looked at the silver locket he had given me for my birthday, for Ava to know she came from love. I wondered if he even remembered the sentiment. Noah texted me, "Hope I didn't cause any trouble. Thinking of you." And in that moment, the contrast between the two men was a chasm. One was a storm, demanding, insecure, and always centered on himself. The other was a quiet harbor, offering safety and warmth without asking for anything in return. I know my journey is far from over. Co-parenting will always be a dance. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. My heart is still a landscape marked by scars, but it's also, for the first time in a very long time, open. The life Liam blew up wasn't my real life. It was a blueprint for a house I thought I wanted. My real life is the one I'm building now, nail by nail, lullaby by lullaby. And for the first time, it feels completely, terrifyingly, wonderfully my own. Update. The first word. The one thing no one tells you about firsts is that there are also lasts. The first time Ava rolled over was the last time she was a baby who would stay where I put her. The first time she pulled herself up to stand, clinging to the coffee table with wobbly determination, was the last time my floor-level outlets could be left uncovered. Each new milestone is a doorway she crawls through, leaving a slightly smaller, less capable version of herself behind. And my heart swells with pride and aches with a bittersweet nostalgia all at once. Her first birthday was approaching like a freight train of mixed emotions. It was a celebration of this incredible little person, a testament to a year of our survival and a logistical nightmare that involved coordinating with Liam. Our co-parenting had settled into a predictable, if sometimes tense, rhythm. He was reliable for his visits, but I often felt like he was visiting a niece, not raising a daughter. He was great at the fun stuff. The toys, the cute outfits, the trips to the zoo where he'd take more photos than he'd watch the actual animals. He was less great at the grit of parenting, the sleepless nights, the diaper blowouts, the relentless, bone-deep exhaustion. Planning her birthday party exposed the fundamental crack in our parenting philosophies. I wanted a small backyard party with a homemade smash cake and our closest friends, the people who had held me up that year. Liam wanted to rent a party space at a kid's gym, hire a professional photographer, and invite his entire extended family, most of whom Ava had never met. "It's our first birthday, Chloe," he argued over the phone. "It's a big deal. It should be an event." "It's a party for a 1-year-old, I countered, trying to keep my voice even as I rocked Ava in her carrier. "Her biggest event will be trying to put cake in her hair. She doesn't need a 3-ring circus." In the end, we compromised. A joint party at a local park pavilion. I could invite my chosen family. He could invite his actual family. And yes, he could hire the photographer, but I insisted on a no-posed pictures rule. It was a small victory. The biggest question mark was Noah. Our relationship had deepened into something quiet, solid, and real. He was the person I texted when Ava finally fell asleep. He was the one who would show up with takeout and a hug after a particularly grueling day. He had fallen effortlessly into love with Ava, and she adored him. But including him in a family event with Liam felt like lighting a match next to a stick of dynamite. "I don't have to come," Noah said gently one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. "I don't want to make a hard day harder for you." I looked at him, this kind, steady man who had shown me what support actually looks like, and I felt a surge of protective certainty. "No," I said, my voice firm. "You're a part of our lives. You should be there." My life was not going to be dictated by Liam's insecurities anymore. The day of the party was bright and sunny. Our two families mingled awkwardly around the picnic tables, a patchwork of past and present. Liam was in full performance mode, directing his photographer, charming his aunts, and holding Ava up for photos like a tiny trophy. I focused on my people, on Maya, who was chasing toddlers, and on Ben and Sam, who were manning the grill. Noah was amazing. He hung back, giving Liam a wide berth, and made himself useful, refilling drinks and helping my mom set out the food. He talked to my friends with an easy warmth. When Liam was busy holding court, Noah would sit on the grass with Ava, showing her how a dandelion puff could explode into 100 tiny seeds. He wasn't trying to be her father, he was just being her friend. I saw Liam watch them from the corner of his eye, a muscle ticking in his jaw. Then, it was time for the cake. We all gathered around the small table, singing a slightly off-key "Happy Birthday" as Ava stared at the single, flickering candle with wide, serious eyes. She looked overwhelmed. I knelt beside her high chair, my hand on her back, while Liam stood on the other side, his phone recording everything. After the song, I helped her mash her hands into the little pink cake. She smeared frosting across her face, her cheeks, her forehead. Everyone laughed. It was messy and chaotic and perfect. And then it happened. She looked up, her blue eyes, so much like his, blinking through the frosting. She pointed a sticky finger directly at Liam. "Dada?" she said, clear as a bell. "Dada!" The world went silent. The photographer's shutter clicked, capturing the moment. Liam froze, his phone lowered. The performative smile dropped from his face, replaced by a look of such raw, unvarnished shock and joy that it took my breath away. He knelt, completely forgetting about the camera, about his audience, about everything. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his eyes locked on Ava. He looked over at me, his own eyes shining with tears. "She said, 'I heard.'" I whispered back, my own throat thick with emotion. A complex wave washed over me, immense pride for my daughter, a sharp pang for the family we could have been, and a strange, unexpected happiness for him. In that single, genuine moment, I saw the father I always wished he could be. He reached out, not to me, but to Ava, and gently wiped a bit of frosting from her cheek. He wasn't posting it, he wasn't performing it, he was just living it. The rest of the party was a blur. The tension between our families seemed to melt away, replaced by a shared warmth. Liam was different. Quieter. More present. He spent less time with the photographer and more time on the ground next to his daughter. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and a clean, sleepy Ava was in her crib, Noah and I sat on my small porch. "That was a big moment," he said softly. "It was," I agreed, leaning my head on his shoulder. "It was everything." I wasn't naive. I knew one word wouldn't magically fix 4 years of selfishness and insecurity. Liam was still Liam. But something had shifted. Maybe for the first time he understood that fatherhood wasn't an event you orchestrate, but a relationship you build, one messy, beautiful, frosting-covered moment at a time. I looked up at the stars beginning to pop out in the deep blue sky. A year ago, my world had been a pile of rubble. Now I was sitting here, next to a man I was falling in love with, my daughter sleeping peacefully inside. The story I was living wasn't the one I had planned. It was infinitely harder, and a million times better. Update: the weight of a word. Ava's first word wasn't just a milestone, it was a fault line. It shifted the tectonic plates of our carefully constructed co-parenting world, and the aftershocks rumbled on for months. After the birthday party, Liam changed. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic transformation into a perfect dad, but a subtle, almost hesitant recalibration. The performative #GirlDad posts on Instagram dwindled. When he came for his visits, he'd still bring toys, but he'd also bring questions. "She's teething again, right? What works best?" Or, "I read that singing the same song before nap time helps. Is that something you're doing?" He was trying, in his own fumbling way, to move from being the weekend guest star to part of the actual cast. He started asking for extra time. A Tuesday evening here, a Thursday morning there. "I just feel like I'm missing the little things," he admitted over the phone one day, his voice stripped of its usual bravado. A part of me, the part that remembered the birthday note and the cold, empty apartment, was wary. Was this just another phase? Another role he was trying on? But another part of me, the part that was Ava's mom, knew that my daughter deserved the chance to have a father who was actively engaged. So I said yes. I redrew the boundaries, cautiously, allowing for more flexibility. This new dynamic, however, created an unexpected friction in the one place I had felt completely safe: my relationship with Noah. Noah had been my harbor, the calm, steady presence in the storm of my new life. But as Liam's presence grew, I could feel a subtle tension creeping in. Noah was endlessly patient and supportive, but I could see the difficulty of his position. He was falling in love with a woman and her child, but he was tethered to the unpredictable orbit of the child's father. The breaking point came on a rainy Saturday. Noah was helping me build a ridiculously complicated dollhouse for Ava, a task that involved tiny screws and confusing, wordless instructions. We were laughing, covered in wood glue, when Liam called. "Hey, I know it's not my day," he started, "but I'm near your place and I just bought this rain gear for Ava. I'd love to take her out for an hour to splash in the puddles." Old Chloe would have said no, citing the schedule, the sacred document that kept our lives from spiraling into chaos. But new Chloe, the one who had seen that look in his eyes at the birthday party, hesitated. Ava loved puddles. "Okay," I said, "give me 20 minutes to get her ready." When I hung up, the laughter in the room was gone. Noah was quietly wiping his hands on a rag, his back to me. "What's wrong?" I asked. He turned, and his kind eyes were clouded with something I hadn't seen before. "Hurt." "It's nothing," he said, but it wasn't nothing. "It's not nothing, Noah. Talk to me." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, sometimes it feels like he's the sun, and we're all just planets, you know? His whims dictate the schedule. He calls, and the plan for the day changes. I feel like I'm always on shifting sand here, Chloe. I want to build something real with you, but I don't know where to put my feet. His words hit me like a punch to the gut because they were true. In my effort to facilitate Ava's relationship with her father, I had inadvertently made Noah feel like a temporary guest in our lives. I had been so focused on managing Liam that I had neglected to build a foundation for us. When Liam arrived, the tension in the tiny apartment was thick enough to cut with a knife. He walked in, saw Noah and the half-built dollhouse, and his face tightened. It was an awkward, stilted handover. As he was leaving with a bundled-up Ava, he paused at the door. "That dollhouse is a little advanced for her, don't you think?" he said, a casual remark laced with territorial poison. After they left, the silence was deafening. "I'm sorry," I said finally, turning to Noah. "I'm so sorry. You're right. I've been trying so hard to keep the peace that I haven't been fair to you. To us." We sat down on the floor, amidst the tiny furniture and wooden walls of the dollhouse, and we talked. Really talked. I told him about my fears, that if I didn't bend, Liam would break and retreat, and Ava would be the one who got hurt. I told him how exhausting it was to be the constant emotional gatekeeper. He listened, and then he took my hand. "You don't have to do it alone," he said. "Let me be your partner in this, not just a visitor. We need our own plans, our own traditions. We need things that are unshakable, that don't get moved when he calls. I'm not trying to replace him. I just want to build a space for myself, for us." It was a revelation. I had been thinking of my life in two separate boxes: co-parenting with Liam and life with Noah. I hadn't realized that for this to work, they had to intersect. That night, Noah and I made our first unshakable plan. Every Friday night would be our night. Pizza, a movie, building forts in the living room, no interruptions allowed. It was a small thing, but it felt monumental. It was the first brick in our own foundation. The next time Liam called to ask for a last-minute change that fell on a Friday, I felt a tremor of my old anxiety. But I looked at the calendar, at the words, "our night," written in Noah's handwriting, and I found my voice. "I'm sorry, Liam, we have plans that night," I said, my voice clear and steady. "You can have her Saturday morning instead." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the surprise, the flicker of his old frustration. But then he just said, "Okay, Saturday morning works." It was that simple. The world didn't end. A boundary wasn't a wall, it was just a guidepost. I am learning that this life isn't about choosing between my past and my future, it's about finding a way to hold both. My daughter needs her father, and I need a partner who knows where his feet are planted. It turns out the ground beneath us was never shifting. I just needed to learn how to stand on it. You got it. Here is the next chapter in the story of Chloe, Ava, and their evolving family. Update: the picture on the fridge. Life has a funny way of settling. The high-drama, earth-shattering moments give way to a quiet, everyday rhythm. The aftershocks of Ava's first word and the establishment of our unshakable Fridays had faded, leaving a new, more stable landscape. Ava was now a babbling, toddling 18-month-old, a tiny whirlwind of curiosity and chaos. My life was a comfortable, if sometimes hectic, juggle of freelance deadlines, playground visits, and cozy Friday nights with Noah. Liam, too, seemed to have settled. He'd embraced his role with a new maturity. He respected our schedule, learned the art of planning ahead, and was genuinely present during his time with Ava. He'd send me pictures of them at the park, or the library, not posed for social media, but candid shots of a father and daughter simply being together. A quiet, functional peace had descended, and I, fool that I was, had started to relax. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was Liam's mom, Carol. Her voice was strained, laced with a forced cheerfulness that set my teeth on edge. "Chloe, dear," she started, "I know this is last minute, but we're having a little family dinner on Saturday to celebrate what would have been my parents' anniversary. It would mean the world to us if you and Ava could come." My internal alarms went off. A family dinner? I was, pointedly, not family anymore. "Oh, that's so thoughtful, Carol," I said, stalling for time as I bounced Ava on my hip. "But Saturday is one of Liam's days with Ava anyway, so he can just bring her." Well, yes, but we'd love for you to be there too, she pressed. It's been so long, we miss you. Every instinct screamed no. It was a boundary I had carefully built. Liam's family events were his to navigate with Ava. I was out. But then she played her trump card. Liam has been seeing someone, she said, the words dropping casually into the conversation. A lovely girl named Sarah. She'll be there. I just thought it might be nice for you all to meet, to show a united front for Ava. The air went out of my lungs. Sarah? It wasn't a shock, exactly. I knew this day would come. But hearing it, knowing this new person was entering my daughter's life, felt like a physical blow. The idea of meeting her for the first time in the lion's den of Liam's family home was horrifying. But Carol's mention of a united front was a carefully aimed arrow, and it hit its mark. My own complicated feelings were secondary to Ava's stability. If I refused, it would look petty, like the bitter ex-girlfriend. So I said yes, a decision that felt like swallowing glass. I told Noah about it that night, and he listened, his expression thoughtful. Do you want me to go with you? He asked. The offer was so pure, so supportive, that it made me want to cry. No, I said, shaking my head. That feels like a declaration of war. This is something I have to do on my own. For Ava. The entire week leading up to the dinner was a storm of anxiety. What would I wear? What would she be like? Would she be kind to my daughter? The questions swirled, keeping me up at night. When Saturday arrived, I dressed Ava in her cutest overalls and myself in what I hoped was an armor of casual confidence. Walking up to Liam's parents' front door felt like a surreal trip back in time. Liam opened the door, and for a second it was like no time had passed. Then I saw her standing behind him. Sarah. She was lovely, of course she was. She had a warm smile and kind eyes, and she immediately knelt to be on Ava's level. You must be Ava, she said, her voice soft. I've heard so much about you. Ava, who was usually shy with strangers, toddled right over and handed Sarah her slobbery, half-chewed giraffe. Sarah took it with a genuine laugh. My heart did a painful little flip. The dinner was an exercise in supreme awkwardness. I was seated between Liam and Carol, directly across from Sarah. The conversation was stilted, full of polite questions and carefully avoided topics. I could feel Liam's tension, his desire for this to go smoothly. I could feel Carol's eyes on me, analyzing every interaction. But Sarah was disarmingly normal. She asked me about my design work. She told a funny story about her cat. She didn't treat me like a rival or a ghost from the past. She treated me like Ava's mom, a person she needed to know. She was, in a word, nice. And that was almost harder than if she had been awful. The real test came after dinner. I followed Carol into the kitchen to help clear the plates, and my eyes immediately went to the refrigerator, that sacred gallery of family life. And there, held by a magnetic clip, was a photo. It was from Ava's birthday party, a candid shot. Liam and I were on either side of Ava's high chair, both of us leaning in, our heads close together, smiling as she smashed her hands into the cake. We looked, for all the world, like a happy, complete family. I just stared at it, my breath caught in my throat. Why was that picture on their fridge? What message was it sending to Sarah? To everyone? It's a beautiful photo, isn't it? Carol said, her voice quiet beside me. My favorite from the day? I didn't know what to say, my mind was racing. Was this a strategic move? A way to keep me tethered? To keep Sarah in her place? Then, Sarah walked into the kitchen. She saw me looking at the photo. An awkward silence fell. This was it. The confrontation, the quiet drama. That's a great picture, she said, her voice simple and direct. Ava looks so happy. She smiled at me, a small, genuine smile. Liam showed it to me. It's important for her to see that her parents are a team for her. And just like that, all the air went out of my paranoid theories. She wasn't threatened, she wasn't playing a game. She was a secure, mature adult who understood the complicated reality of our situation. She saw a picture of her boyfriend and his ex, and her first thought was for the happiness of the child in the middle. In that moment, something inside me broke free. The last, lingering threads of ownership, of resentment, of what if, they all just dissolved. Liam was no longer mine to lose. His family was no longer mine to navigate. My role was clear, singular, and powerful. I was Ava's mom. And this woman, this kind, lovely Sarah, wasn't a threat to that. She was potentially an ally. I left soon after, the polite goodbyes feeling a little warmer, a little more real. As I drove home through the dark, with Ava sleeping peacefully in her car seat, I felt a profound sense of lightness. When I got home, Noah was on the couch, reading a book, waiting for me. He looked up, his expression full of concern. "How was it?" he asked. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and walked over, sinking down onto the couch beside him and leaning my head against his chest. "It was okay," I said, the words feeling truer than I ever expected. "I think it's all going to be okay." He wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. It wasn't the end of a chapter, it was the end of the whole first book. The story of the broken-hearted girl was over, and a new one, the story of the woman and the mother I was becoming, was just beginning. Update, the question. The years between 2 and 4 are a magic trick. You blink. And the babbling toddler who communicated in single words and enthusiastic pointing is suddenly a tiny, articulate person with a favorite color, purple, a passionate opinion on broccoli, evil, and a series of increasingly complex questions about the world. Our world had found its equilibrium. Life was a comfortable tapestry woven from my freelance work, Ava's preschool schedule, and the steady, quiet joy of my life with Noah. His unshakable Fridays had become a sacred ritual, the anchor of our week. Liam and Sarah were still together, a solid fixture in Ava's life. Our blended, modern family had somehow, against all odds, become normal. The handovers at the door were no longer fraught with tension, but filled with quick, friendly chats about Ava's latest funny quote or a new tooth coming in. Sarah would often be with him, always ready with a warm smile for me, and a special Auntie Sarah hug for Ava. We'd even mastered the art of joint holiday planning. We developed a system of alternating years and shared events that felt fair and, most importantly, put Ava's experience at the center. The bitterness had long since faded, replaced by a functional, even fond, partnership. We were a team, just as Sarah had said all that time ago. The question, when it came, was not a surprise. I'd been bracing for it for months, running through potential answers in my head, but knowing it's coming doesn't soften the blow. It happened on a Tuesday night. It was bath time, Ava's favorite part of the day. She was surrounded by a flotilla of plastic boats and rubber ducks, her hair sculpted into a soapy mohawk. "Mommy," she said, her voice thoughtful as she poured water from one cup to another. "Why don't you and Daddy live in the same house?" I froze, my hand hovering over the faucet. Here it was, the big one. "That's a really good question, sweetie," I said, my voice coming out calmer than I felt. I sat down on the bath mat, bringing myself to her level. "Do you remember how your friend Izzy has a mommy and a mama who love her very much? And how Leo just has a mommy who loves him very much?" She nodded, splashing a boat through a mountain of bubbles. "Yep. Well, families can look lots of different ways," I continued, choosing my words with the care of a bomb disposal expert. "Your daddy and I, we loved each other very, very much, and we made you, who is the most wonderful person in the whole world. But sometimes, mommies and daddies realize they are better at being friends and taking care of you from different houses." She looked at me, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was processing it. "So you're still friends?" "Yes," I said, relief washing over me. "We are very good friends. We're a team. Our most important job is being your mommy and daddy, and we can do that job best when we live in our own homes." "Oh," she said. She seemed to accept this. She dunked her rubber duck under the water and then brought it back up with a triumphant splash. For a moment, I thought I had done it. I had navigated the first great existential crisis of her childhood. But then she looked at me again, her gaze direct and clear. "But Noah lives here," she stated. It wasn't a question, it was an observation. A complication. Yes, he does, I said gently. Is he going to be my daddy too? The air in the steamy bathroom suddenly felt thin. This was the part one hadn't rehearsed. How do you explain the complex, layered landscape of love to a 3-year-old? Noah loves you more than anything, my sweet girl. I started, my heart aching. And he is my partner, but you already have a daddy. You are so lucky you have a daddy who loves you, and a Noah who loves you. You get extra love. I could see the confusion in her eyes. Her world was one of mommies and daddies. This extra love was an abstract concept. I saw her lower lip begin to tremble, the telltale sign of a coming emotional storm. It wasn't about jealousy or anger. It was about the profound unfairness of it all. Her friends had one house, one neat and tidy family unit. Her life was split in two, and now a confusing third piece had been introduced. I just want us all to live in one big house, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. You and Daddy and me and Noah and Sarah. My heart broke. It shattered into a million pieces right there on the damp bath mat. All my careful planning, all my mature co-parenting, all my efforts to build a stable, happy world for her, none of it could protect her from this fundamental sadness, from the simple, childish wish for everything to be whole. I pulled her out of the tub and wrapped her in a big, fluffy towel, holding her tight against my chest as she sobbed. I didn't offer any more platitudes or explanations. I just held her and whispered, I know, baby. I know, I'm so sorry, I love you so much. When Noah came home an hour later, he found me sitting on Ava's bed, watching her sleep, my own face streaked with tears. I told him what had happened. He sat down beside me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. You know, he said softly, his voice a comforting rumble in the quiet room. This isn't a failure, Chloe. This is just the hard part. The part where we can't fix it with a kiss and a Band-Aid. We just have to be here for the feelings. The next day, I called Liam. I told him about Ava's questions and her heartbreak. He was quiet on the other end of the line for a long time. What do we do? He finally asked, and for the first time in a very long time, he sounded like he was asking for a real answer, not just looking for a quick fix. He sounded like a co-parent. I said slowly, an idea forming in my mind. We need to show her the team, all of us. And so, the following Saturday, we did something we had never done before. Liam and Sarah and Noah and I took Ava to the zoo, together. It was awkward at first. The four of us, a strange collection of pasts and presents, stood around the penguin enclosure making stilted conversation. But Ava was in heaven. She held Noah's hand as she pointed at the monkeys and then immediately ran to Liam to be lifted up to see the giraffes. She insisted on sitting between Sarah and me on the bench while we ate ice cream. She was the bridge. Her pure, uncomplicated love for all of us connected the disparate points of our strange constellation. She tugged us together, forcing us to orbit her, the bright, warm sun of our universe. As we were leaving, walking towards the parking lot, Ava was riding on Liam's shoulders. She looked over at me and Noah, walking a few feet away, and then back at her dad and Sarah. A small, thoughtful look crossed her face. My team, she said, her voice clear and proud. Liam and I locked eyes over her head. There were no tears this time, just a quiet, profound understanding. We couldn't give her one big house, but we had given her this, a team. And maybe, just maybe, that was a different kind of whole. Update: the other parents. The zoo trip, as it came to be known, was a turning point. It wasn't a magic wand that erased all the complexities of our life, but it solidified the foundation of Ava's team. We started doing more things, the 5 of us, not for show, but for her. A shared afternoon at the pumpkin patch, a pizza night before Christmas, a spot on the sidelines of her first soccer practice, where all 4 of us cheered her on. It became our new normal. Ava, now a fiercely independent and chatty 5-year-old on the cusp of kindergarten, thrived. The heartbreaking questions about our living situation had subsided, replaced by a confident ownership of her unique family. "I have 2 houses," she'd tell her friends, "and a mommy and a daddy and a Noah and a Sarah." For her, it was no longer a deficit but a surplus of love. I had foolishly believed we had cleared the highest hurdle. I had forgotten that once you get your own house in order, you have to face the rest of the world. And the world, it turns out, is full of other parents. The first inkling of trouble came during the preschool end-of-year picnic. I was sitting on a blanket with Noah, watching Ava chase bubbles, when one of the class moms, a woman named Brenda, who seemed to be the self-appointed queen bee of the playground, sat down beside me. "It's just so wonderful what you all do," she began, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that immediately put me on guard. "I saw you all at the soccer game last week. Liam and his wife?" "Partner," I corrected gently. "Sarah." Right, so progressive," she said, nodding with a little too much enthusiasm. "You and your partner, and him and his. It must be so confusing for Ava, but you make it work. It's so brave." Every word was a carefully wrapped insult. Progressive, confusing, brave. She made our family sound like a social experiment, a tightrope walk over a pit of emotional trauma. I gave a tight, polite smile and changed the subject, but the conversation left a bitter, metallic taste in my mouth. The real challenge began with kindergarten registration. The forms were a minefield of neat little boxes that our messy, sprawling family couldn't fit into. Mother, father, stepmother, stepfather, guardian. Noah was none of these, legally. Sarah was none of these. Yet they were both central figures in Ava's life. On the emergency contact list, I listed all 4 of us, a small act of defiance against the bureaucracy of the nuclear family. The parent orientation night was a fresh kind of hell. Noah and I went together, finding seats in the crowded auditorium. I scanned the room and saw Liam and Sarah sitting a few rows ahead. We exchanged a small, friendly wave, a team. But as the principal droned on about lunch menus and bus schedules, I could feel the curious glances. I heard the whispers behind us. "That's Ava's mom." "Yeah, the dad is over there with the new girlfriend. And that's the mom's new boyfriend. It's a whole thing." My face burned. I felt a primal urge to stand up and scream, "We are not a thing! We are a family!" But I just sat there, my hands clenched in my lap and focused on the slideshow of smiling children on the screen. The true test came a few weeks into the school year. Ava was invited to her first birthday party, a coveted invitation to a princess-themed extravaganza at the home of a popular little girl in her class. The Evite requested that parents RSVP with who would be dropping off and picking up. I replied that I would be dropping her off and Liam would be picking her up. Simple. The next day, I received a prim, polite email from the birthday girl's mother. "Hi, Chloe," it read. "Thanks for the RSVP. We're so excited to have Ava celebrate with us. Just to avoid any confusion at pickup, could you confirm who Liam is? We're trying to be extra careful with security. Thanks." I stared at the email. Who Liam is? He was her father. It was on all the forms. It was a perfectly normal co-parenting arrangement. But the subtext of the email was clear. "We saw your strange entourage at orientation, and we need you to explain your complicated life to us." I took a deep breath and typed a simple, factual reply. "Hi, Liam is Ava's father. Thanks." I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. On the day of the party, as Liam was walking Ava out, he got a text. It was from the party mom. "Hi, Liam. Just confirming you're Ava's father and are approved for pickup." Chloe confirmed, but just wanted to double-check. Liam, to his credit, was more annoyed than angry. He called me later that day. "It's like they need a signed affidavit for me to pick up my own kid," he vented. "What is wrong with these people?" "They think we're a sideshow," I said, the bitterness I'd felt at the picnic welling up again. "They see 4 adults who are civil to each other, and it short-circuits their brains." That night, after Ava was asleep, I sat with Noah on the porch, the weight of the day pressing down on me. "I hate this," I whispered. "I hate that our daughter's life is gossip for these people. I hate that they look at us and see drama instead of love." Noah was quiet for a moment. tracing the rim of his water glass. "Then we have to change the story they're telling," he said. "How?" I asked, my voice full of frustration. "I can't exactly hand out a flowchart of our family tree at the school bake sale." "No," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "We do something better. We volunteer." And so we did. The following week, when the email went out asking for parent volunteers for the school's fall festival, I signed up. I signed up for the cakewalk. Then I called Liam. "You and Sarah should sign up for the pumpkin painting station," I told him, "and Noah is going to help with setup." On the day of the festival, we were a force. A team. Liam and Sarah, covered in orange paint, patiently helped 5-year-olds create messy masterpieces. I handed out cupcakes to sugar-crazed children. Noah, tall and steady, hauled tables and hung banners. We were visible, we were present, we were normal. I saw Brenda, the playground queen bee, watching us from the silent auction table, a look of grudging respect on her face. Other parents came up to us, not with whispers, but with normal parent complaints about the price of corn dogs and the length of the bouncy house line. Near the end of the day, Ava's teacher, a warm, kind woman named Mrs. Davison, came over to me at the cakewalk. "You have a wonderful family, Chloe," she said, her smile genuine and free of pity. "Ava is so lucky to have so many people who show up for her." Tears pricked my eyes. It was a simple statement, but it was everything. She didn't see confusion or drama. She saw love. She saw a team. As we were packing up our station, Liam came over, a streak of orange paint on his cheek. "You know," he said, looking around at the happy, chaotic scene, "this wasn't so bad." "We're a good team," I said, and for the first time, I wasn't just talking about parenting Ava. I was talking about us, all of us, facing the world together. We couldn't control the whispers. We couldn't fit our lives into their neat little boxes. But we could show up. We could paint pumpkins and hand out cupcakes and build a reality so strong and full of love that their gossip would simply bounce off it. Our family wasn't a problem to be solved. It was a fact, and we were done explaining it. Update the second question. The years between 5 and 7 are when the world solidifies. The fuzzy edges of early childhood sharpen into distinct memories, friendships become profound alliances, and the concept of fair becomes a matter of life and death. For Ava, kindergarten and first grade were a whirlwind of lost teeth, scraped knees, and learning to read. Our family, once a source of playground gossip, had become an accepted, if slightly unusual, fact of life at her school. Our consistent presence at festivals, concerts, and parent-teacher conferences had normalized us. We were simply Ava's team. The rhythm of our lives was so steady, so comfortable, that I didn't see the next big shift coming. It started, as most things did, with Ava. She came home from school one day, her face unusually somber. She dropped her unicorn backpack on the floor and climbed onto the kitchen stool, watching me slice apples for her after-school snack. "Mommy," she said, her voice small, "Madison's mommy is having a baby in her tummy." I smiled. "That's so exciting for them." "Yeah," she said, kicking her heels against the stool. "She is going to be a big sister." She paused, picking up an apple slice and examining it with intense focus. "Will I ever be a big sister?" The question hung in the air, simple and yet loaded with a decade of unspoken history. It was the second great existential question of her childhood, the one that came after "Why don't you and Daddy live together?" My heart did a familiar pang. It was the eternal ache of the co-parent, the knowledge that some childhood wishes are simply impossible to grant. I couldn't give her a sibling who shared both her parents. "Well, sweetie," I began, choosing my words carefully, "Daddy and Sarah might have a baby someday, and Noah and I might have a baby someday. So you could definitely become a big sister. But they would be your half-sister or half-brother." "Half?" she asked, her nose wrinkling in confusion. "Like, you only love them half?" "Oh, no, of course not," I said quickly, kneeling down to be at her eye level. "You would love them with your whole entire heart. It just means you share one parent with them. You'd share a mommy with my baby, and you'd share a daddy with Daddy's baby." She seemed to be processing this complex family math. "So, I wouldn't live with them all the time? That's right, I said gently. Just like you don't live with me and Daddy all the time. Oh, she said, her shoulders slumping. The flicker of excitement in her eyes had died out. This wasn't the big sister dream she saw in movies and her friends' lives. This was another compromise, another reminder that her family was different. She quietly finished her apples and went to her room to play, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the weight of her disappointment. That night, I told Noah about the conversation. We were lying in bed, the house dark and quiet around us. The topic of having a child together was not a new one for us. It was a conversation we'd had in soft, hypothetical tones for years. We both wanted it someday. But someday had always been a comfortable, distant horizon. Ava's question had pulled that horizon right to our front door. It's not just about us anymore, is it? Noah said, his voice thoughtful in the darkness. It's about her too, about what we'd be bringing her into. And what about Liam and Sarah? I whispered. I knew, through the co-parenting grapevine, that they had been trying to have a baby for over a year with no success. It was a quiet, private struggle I had respected from a distance. My having a baby with Noah felt complicated. It felt like another way our lives were moving forward while Liam's was, in some ways, still tied to the choices he'd made all those years ago. The conversation hung in the air, unresolved. 2 weeks later, Liam called me. His voice was tight, strained. Can we talk? Just us. We met at the coffee shop where I had once handed him the lawyer's folder, so many lifetimes ago. He looked tired. The easy confidence he always wore was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability I had rarely seen. Sarah's pregnant, he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. A wave of genuine happiness washed over me. Liam, that's wonderful news. Congratulations. He ran a hand over his face, and, to my shock, his eyes were wet with tears. It is, he said, his voice thick. It's a miracle. We'd almost given up hope. But Chloe, I'm terrified. I just listened as he poured it all out. His fear of not being a good enough father, his anxiety about the medical bills, his worry about how this would change his relationship with Ava. He wasn't performing. He wasn't looking for absolution. He was just a scared, expectant father talking to the only other person on the planet who understood the specific, complex reality of their shared child. You're going to be a great dad to this baby, Liam, I said, and I meant it. You already are a great dad to Ava. You learned how. You showed up. What if she feels replaced? He asked, his voice cracking. What if she thinks I love this baby more? She won't, I assured him, because we won't let her. The team will show up. We'll make her the most important, most celebrated big sister in the world. We sat there for another hour, not as exes, but as parents. We made a plan. We would tell Ava together, all four of us. We would make it a celebration. That Saturday, we sat Ava down in my living room, Liam and Sarah, Noah and me. Liam held Sarah's hand, and Noah's hand was a warm, steady presence on my back. Ava, Liam started, his voice a little shaky. Sarah and I have some very exciting news. You're going to be a big sister. Ava's eyes widened. She looked from Liam and Sarah to me and Noah, a silent question on her face. You're getting a little brother or sister who will live at Daddy's house? I explained gently. The confusion from our previous talk was gone, replaced by a slow-dawning, radiant joy. This wasn't a hypothetical anymore. This was real. A baby, she squealed, bouncing on the couch. My baby? Our baby, Sarah said, her voice soft and full of emotion. And you're going to be the best big sister. That night, as I tucked Ava into bed, she was vibrating with excitement. She was already making plans to teach the baby how to build block towers and sing the alphabet song. The half part didn't matter anymore. The separate houses didn't matter. It was just love. After she was asleep, I found Noah on the porch, looking up at the stars. I walked up behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my cheek against his back. We stood there in silence for a long time. I think, I said softly, my voice muffled by his shirt, that someday is getting closer. He turned in my arms, his expression serious and full of a love that still, after all these years, took my breath away. "Is that your question?" he asked. "It's not a question," I replied, a slow, certain smile spreading across my face. "It's an answer." Our family wasn't a straight line. It was a sprawling, ever-expanding constellation, with new stars igniting when you least expected them. And it was more beautiful than anything I could have ever mapped out on my own. Update: the space between. Pregnancy is a public spectacle. Sarah's belly grew, and with it, Ava's excitement. She would come home from weekends with Liam bubbling with updates. "The baby is the size of a lemon now, and Daddy is painting the baby's room blue." She was deeply, personally invested. She was practicing her big sister skills on her dolls and offering Sarah her last cookie with a solemnity usually reserved for religious rites. My own secret was quieter. Noah and I had started trying, a decision that felt both thrilling and terrifying. We didn't tell anyone at first, not even Ava. It was a fragile, hopeful thing we wanted to protect, to nurture in the quiet space between just the two of us. Life became a strange duality. In one part of my world, I was the supportive co-parent, helping Ava make welcome home signs for her new sibling, fielding her endless, excited questions, and coordinating with Liam and Sarah on baby gear, so Ava would have her own special things for the baby at my house too. In the other part, I was tracking my cycle, my body a landscape of hope and monthly disappointment. It was hard. It was hard to plaster on a genuinely happy face when Sarah talked about her latest ultrasound while my own body felt like a failure. It was hard to listen to Ava's joyful plans for a sibling at her dad's house when my own secret wish for one at ours remained unfulfilled. Noah was my rock. He held me through the tears of every negative pregnancy test, his steady presence, a constant reminder that our life was already whole, already full of love. "Our story isn't on a deadline," he'd whisper, holding me close. "It will happen when it's meant to happen." Liam and Sarah's son, Leo, was born on a crisp October morning. Liam called me from the hospital, his voice thick with an exhaustion and awe I remembered so well. "He's here," he said. "He's so small." We took Ava to the hospital that afternoon. She walked into the room, a massive world's best big sister balloon tied to her wrist, and her eyes landed on the tiny, swaddled bundle in Sarah's arms. All the boisterous energy she'd been carrying for months just melted away. She approached the bed with a reverence I'd never seen in her. Sarah, looking tired but radiant, smiled. "Do you want to hold your brother, Ava?" Liam carefully lifted the baby and placed him in Ava's waiting arms as she sat nestled between us on the hospital bed. Ava just stared at him, her face a perfect portrait of wonder. She gently touched his cheek with one finger. "Hi, Leo," she whispered. "It's me. I'm your big sister." Watching them, my heart felt like it was going to burst. All the complicated feelings, the twinges of jealousy, the quiet struggles, they all vanished. There was only this pure, perfect moment of connection. I caught Liam's eye across the bed, and in that shared glance, there was a whole universe of understanding. We had come so far from that disastrous birthday party. The broken pieces of our past had been reassembled into this beautiful, strange, and unbreakable mosaic. Life with a new baby in the mix was a chaotic adjustment for everyone. Liam was plunged back into the newborn trenches, and our conversations were suddenly peppered with his complaints about sleep deprivation and diaper blowouts. "How did we do this?" he asked me one day during a handover, looking utterly shell-shocked. "I don't remember it being this hard." "You blocked it out," I laughed. "It's a biological survival mechanism." Ava, for her part, was the most devoted big sister. She was gentle and patient with Leo, and fiercely protective. But there was also a new, subtle sadness to her. She would come home to our quiet house after a weekend with the bustling energy of a new baby and seem a little lost. "It's loud at Daddy's house," she told me one night as I tucked her in. "Leo cries a lot." "He does," I said, "but he'll get bigger and cry less." "It's quiet here," she said, her voice small. "It's just us." My heart ached. Her world was now split not just between two houses, but between two completely different experiences. One was the chaotic, noisy, all-consuming world of a new baby. The other was the calm, predictable world of our little family of 3. She was living in the space between. The positive pregnancy test came on a snowy morning in January. I stared at the 2 pink lines, my hands trembling, my breath caught in my throat. After so many months of hoping it didn't feel real, I wrapped it in tissue paper, put it in a small box, and gave it to Noah when he came home from work. He opened it, looked at the test, and then looked at me, his eyes filling with a joy so pure and profound it made me weep. We decided to tell Ava on Valentine's Day. We made a special dinner, and for dessert, Noah brought out a small cake. On it, written in clumsy purple icing, were the words, "Happy Valentine's Day, big sister." Ava stared at the cake, her brow furrowed. She read the words out loud, slowly. "Big sister?" She looked up at us, her eyes wide with a dawning, incredulous hope. "But, Leo, you're going to be a big sister again," I said, my voice thick with happy tears. "You're going to have a baby brother or sister who lives here, with us." It took a moment to sink in. Then, the most incredible, radiant smile broke across her face. She launched herself out of her chair and threw her arms around both of us, her small body shaking with excitement. "2 babies!" she shrieked. "I get 2 babies!" The joy was explosive, uncontained. It filled every corner of our small house. This wasn't a compromise. This wasn't a half-sibling. This was her baby in her house. This, for her, was finally whole. Telling Liam was interesting. I called him the next day. I could hear Leo gurgling in the background. "Wow," he said after a long pause. "Another one. Our kids are going to have a whole gang." There was no jealousy, no weirdness. Just a simple, unadulterated happiness for me, for us. "Congratulations, Chloe. Really." A few weeks later, Sarah sent me a text. It was a picture of a tiny pair of purple sneakers. "For your little one," the message read. From her, or his, cousins, Ava and Leo. I looked at the picture and felt a wave of gratitude so immense it almost knocked me over. My daughter wasn't living in the space between 2 separate families. She was the heart of one big, sprawling, unconventional one. Our babies wouldn't be half-siblings. They would be a gang. They would be cousins. They would be family. And it was a family built, not on neat lines and tidy boxes, but on something far stronger. A stubborn, resilient, and ever-expanding love. Final update, the full circle. There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over a house when 2 children are asleep. It's not an empty quiet. It's a full one, humming with the leftover energy of the day. The echoes of laughter, the faint scent of bubble bath, the sight of a tiny pair of sneakers left in the middle of the floor. This quiet is my favorite sound in the world. My son, Miles, is 6 months old. He has Noah's calm eyes and my stubborn cowlick. He is adored by his big sister with a fierce, all-consuming passion. Ava, now a wise and worldly 8-year-old, is the keeper of his stories, the singer of his lullabies, and the only one who can make him belly laugh by making silly faces. Our house is louder now, messier, and infinitely more full of joy. The rhythm of our life has shifted to accommodate the relentless demands of a baby, but the foundation Noah and I built has held strong. We are a team, sleep-deprived but undefeated. Leo, Liam and Sarah's son, is a rambunctious toddler. He and Miles are being raised less like half-siblings and more like cousins, or even brothers. Our handovers are no longer just parent-to-parent exchanges, but chaotic, happy reunions of the kids. Ava runs to greet Leo with a hug, and Miles lights up from his car seat at the sight of his brother-cousin. We linger at the doorway, comparing notes on teething remedies and sleep regressions, our conversation a comfortable shorthand of shared parenthood. The team has become second nature. When I came down with a nasty flu last month, unable to even lift my head off the pillow, It was Sarah who showed up at my door with a pot of soup and took both Miles and Ava for the afternoon so Noah and I could rest. There was no hesitation, no keeping score. It was just what you do for family. The moment that brought everything full circle happened last Saturday. It was my 32nd birthday. There was no big party, no dramatic pronouncements. The day was simple. Noah made me pancakes in the morning. Ava gave me a handmade card covered in glitter that declared me the best mommy in the galaxy. Miles gummed a piece of wrapping paper into a soggy pulp. It was perfect. That afternoon, Liam stopped by. He had Ava with him, and Sarah and Leo were in the car. "Happy birthday, Chloe," he said, handing me a small, wrapped box. I felt a ghost of a chill, a phantom memory of another box, another birthday, a lifetime ago. I shot a quick, involuntary glance at Noah, who gave me a small, reassuring nod. I opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of cotton, was a simple silver bracelet. From it hung 4 tiny hand-stamped charms. One was the letter A for Ava, one was L for Leo, one was M for Miles, and the last was a little star. "The star is for you," Liam said quietly, seeing the question in my eyes. "For being the North Star of this whole crazy thing. For keeping us all pointed in the right direction." I looked up at him, the man who had once shattered my world with a cruel note, and I felt nothing but a gentle, quiet gratitude. The anger was a distant echo. The heartbreak was a scar that no longer ached. He was just Liam, a person I had once loved, the father of my daughter. A permanent, foundational piece of my family's story. "Thank you," I whispered, my throat tight. "It's beautiful." Ava, impatient with the adult sentimentality, tugged on my hand. "Come on, Mommy! Daddy and Sarah and Leo are taking us for birthday ice cream, and Noah and Miles, too. The whole team." And so we went. The 6 of us piled into 2 cars and went to the local ice cream shop. We sat at a sticky outdoor table, a chaotic jumble of strollers and high chairs. I watched as Ava carefully helped Leo eat his chocolate ice cream, getting more on his face than in his mouth. I watched Noah spoon a tiny bit of vanilla bean into Miles's mouth for the very first time, his eyes wide with wonder. I watched Liam and Sarah laugh together as they tried to clean up the inevitable mess. I looked at this scene, at this sprawling, unconventional, beautiful family. My team. None of it was what I had planned that night of my 24th birthday, with a secret ultrasound picture in my purse and a heart full of naive dreams. My life wasn't the neat, linear story I thought I was supposed to have. It was a mosaic, pieced together from broken bits and unexpected treasures. It was a story of forgiveness, not just of Liam but of myself, forever thinking my worth was something that could be written on a piece of paper and handed to me in a box. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and the house was filled with that precious, humming quiet, I sat on the porch with Noah. I twisted the new bracelet on my wrist, the little charms cool against my skin. The note all those years ago had said, "You're holding me back. I deserve more." It was the cruelest thing anyone had ever said to me. It was also, in the strangest, most ironic way, true. I had deserved more. More than his secrets, more than his insecurity, more than the small, carefully curated life he had planned. I deserved this messy, beautiful, overflowing life, this quiet porch, this steady hand in mine, this family. I finally understood. He didn't break my life that night. He just broke it open. And in the space that broke open, everything real and wonderful and true had a chance to grow.